Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of BAM Sports and Entertainment. That's Boris and Matt, Sports and Entertainment. And funny enough, those are our names. I'm Boris. And as always, I am joined by Matt.
Bonjour! How's everybody doing out there? We hope you're doing well. Beautiful fall morning here in Toronto in the big smoke, Boris. How you feeling today, man?
I'm feeling fantastic. Dude, huge news. I fell asleep before midnight last night.
Hey, Boris, getting rest like a human being. There you go. How do you feel today? Feel like a new man?
I woke up at like 5.
Nice. Well, that's something. Hit the ground running, I guess.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere, right? But on this week's episode of BAM, we have tons of sports and a little bit of wrestling chat. We will be talking about the MLB because it is September. It is when every game can count. We're going to be talking about the NL West, the AL East, probably the two craziest divisions in baseball today. We're going to be having some Hall of Fame chat. We're going to be chatting some NFL because today, if you are listening on the day that it's released, which is September 9th, it is NFL Day 1, Week 1, long season. We'll be chatting a little bit about that. And then we're going to be rounding up the sports talk with some World Cup talk because the first round, or the first group of games, just wrapped up last night for CONCACAF. And we're going to be talking CONCACAF because we are in Canada. That's what we should care about, CONCACAF. And then we're going to be in the wrestling portion of the show, we're going to be talking the first ever episode of WWF Superstars, which debuted 30 years ago. We're also going to be chatting RoH, and then we have a huge pick contest to wrap up the show.
Yes, sir. 35 years ago, Boris. We're friggin' old men, buddy. September 8th, 1986, Superstars debut.
What did I say, 30?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Taking 5 years off my life already.
Yeah, I'll take them 5 years back. No, I think we're doing well. I think we're in a good place here. But anyway, man, lots to talk about. I think we'll also probably briefly touch on AEW All Out just because it was such a spectacular event. Maybe not even go match by match, but just broad general thoughts, right?
Exactly. In general.
Yeah, we should probably talk about the rumors that Adam Cole, what his rumored WWE path was going to be. That'll be fun. We'll touch on that stuff during wrestling portion. I'm very excited for sports portion, especially baseball, man. The Jays are red hot.
Dude, a week ago, we were basically, week ago we didn't even talk sports, but 2 weeks ago, we were basically saying Jays are in a make or break week. Last week, they kind of floundered a bit at the start of the week, but the past 8 days or so, they have been probably the hottest team in baseball, beating some pretty damn good teams, having some amazingly fun games, especially last Friday against the A's, down 8-2. I wrote them off. I went to the bar. I wasn't even watching the game. Next thing you know, 8-8. And then even then, I still wrote them off. I still said, they're not coming back from this. And they ended up winning with a walk-off. It's beautiful. But yeah, no, the Jays the past week have just been amazing. It's been so much fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, such an entertaining team. The lineup, the young guns in the lineup, it's just so great. Vladdy, what is he, 41 home runs now?
Yep.
It seems like a team that really gets along. They're really like enjoying each other's company. They have fun out there. It's just a fun team to watch. I love watching the Toronto Blue Jays, man.
They are a super fun team, and it's like, you have to remember how young they are too, right? Like, they're such a young team still.
Exactly. Reminds me of the Raptors from right before the Kawhi trade, and then kind of in that Kawhi trade season. It kind of reminds me of that, just the guys gelling and just such a fun team to watch with so many young stars. We don't have like the veteran Kawhi presence really, although I guess you could argue Semien and you could argue Springer. They're not MVP level like Kawhi. Semien's close though.
Yep. He is. He's having a hell of a year. It's just like, at this point, what can the Jays possibly do? Apparently, there's a report over the weekend where we tried re-signing him, but that didn't work out. And he's still he is still in a wait and see. Like, let me finish the season, let me get my numbers, let's see what I'm worth.
Absolutely, and it makes sense. Like, he's going to test his value. But the Jays have deep pockets, and I hope we kind of break the bank a little bit. Even if it's like a 2-year deal and just like a slight overpay, I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
not my money.
Like deep pockets. Like, but even then, what does that mean, right? Like, yeah, our owners are Rogers, but they're not putting every cent into the Blue Jays.
No. But they should, Boris.
Well,
they should.
Right.
Rather than putting it into Rogers Ignite, am I right?
Well, hey, Rogers Ignite keeps us powered in the house.
Yeah, true. Thanks, Rogers Ignite, for powering this podcast right now, in fact. But, yeah, man. I don't know.
But, okay, I have a question for you. Okay, so Simeon, we don't know what he is going to be worth. In my opinion, we got to do something. We got to try. We got to at least, from an optics point of view, because management right now at the Jays, Shapiro and Atkins, no matter what they do, people are going to hate them. So everything is about optics with them, in my opinion. And you can correct me if you think I'm wrong. But, if we don't sign Simeon, at the very least, we need to make it very publicly known how hard we tried to sign him. I think that's the key, right, for me. And if we don't sign him, the optics are the important part. But if you had to sign one of these two players, who would you sign? Simeon or Robbie Ray?
I can only get one?
You can only get one. Because this is the reality. I think this is the choice that we're going to have this offseason.
Well, in a vacuum, I think Marcus Simeon, I think he's quote unquote better. Not that Robbie Ray's not having a great year. Robbie Ray's doing really well as well. Robbie Ray is slightly younger, but they're both around the same age. Marcus Simeon, born September 17th, 1990, he's 30. Robbie Ray, born October 1st, 1991, he's 29. So he's like a year younger. The only thing here is we need the pitching far more than we need Simeon. As dope as Simeon is, and as much as he has helped, we can get by without his presence in the lineup because we have so many other dynamic hitters. Like, we can afford the loss in the lineup way more than we can afford the loss in the bullpen. So I think we need to sign Ray if we had to make that choice.
Yep, I agree 100% with you. I think that's like what's been haunting us over the past few seasons. It's been our pitching, right? I think that in terms of fielding, I think we can make up for it. Like, I'm not saying a Simeon is a dime a dozen, right? But you can find an adequate middle infielder a lot easier than you can find a very adequate starting pitcher nowadays, in my opinion. Especially someone who would want to play here. Especially someone who, who I think would kind of benefit from our system and clearly has benefited from our system, right? And I think he recognizes this. Right now, he being Ray. So, and we have people on the bench. We have people like Espinal. We have people like Biggio, who we don't exactly know where they're going to play into the system. I'm not saying that it's a direct one-for-one replacement, but we have options at the very least. Having said that, the numbers that Simeon are putting up is just ridiculous. Like, it's just absolutely unreal.
Oh, yeah, man. He's like legitimately, like Montoyo said the other day, he's playing his way into MVP conversation. And that wasn't just manager speak. He legitimately is like sneaking his way into the back end of MVP conversation. It has to be Ohtani. And even then, probably Vlad's ahead of him on his own team. But still, like, Simeon's having an unbelievable season. But he's 30 years old. It's a contract year. I wouldn't want to sign him to like a Pujols deal. You know what I mean? But if we like broke the bank to sign both of these guys short term, I think that's the move, and I think it benefits both players too. Although when you're around 30, I think you probably want that long-term bag. I think it could benefit both players.
That's the thing, right? Like, that's kind of where I'm kind of like iffy on. It's like, and clearly we're not in the mind of Simeon right now. But like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for, clear out victory right now? Or are you looking for that long-term, I'm getting up there in age contract?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the latter. And I really, The more I think about it and the more we have this conversation here, I do kind of think you're right. And I do think the Jays will select Robbie Ray over Semien. So Semien, he might leave,
Yep.
This might be the end. This might be the one and only run. The boy, what a run it's been, man.
Yep. What a one night stand it's been.
Similar to ECW 2005 or a couple that I've had over the. No, I'm just kidding.
2006 wasn't bad, but no. So we'll see what's exactly is going on with the Jays. But right now, what are we? A 7-game win streak, longest in a couple years. Final game against the Yankees tonight. It's funny because I was having some conversations with my our good buddy Kevin O'Leary, who wrote the theme. Thank you so much for that again.
The real Kevin O'Leary.
Yep, we were saying out of the 7 games that we had left with the Yankees at the start of the week, we needed to win at least 5 of them.
Yeah, and it looks like we're you hit that goal, so that's pretty good, man. Oh, dude, like the schedule coming up is gonna be interesting. So after this Jays game, after this Yankees game, the Jays have 4 in a row against the Orioles, a 4-game series. Then they go 3 against Tampa, 3 against Minnesota, 3 more against Tampa, 3 more against Minnesota, and then the Yankees and the Orioles to close out the season. So there's a lot of Tampa Bay in there, man, and Tampa Bay's very good. But we also have a lot of Baltimore, and we play the Yankees, like you said, another time, another kick at that can. So.
Yep. And those games against the Orioles, in my opinion, are vital. Like, this is the thing about the Jays that have just gotten to me, especially this season. We can beat the Rays. We can beat the Sox. We can beat the Yankees. But the one team in our division that we should absolutely beat seems to be the team that we struggle against. Yes,
exactly. And that sucks. But you know what? Baltimore, we can this is the time, right? This is the time. And we have 7 games, I think it was, remaining against them. We can win, like you said, 5 or 6 of those 7 pretty easy. Like, it doesn't matter what's happened previously. Also, Minnesota secretly is the worst team in the AL Central.
Yep.
They're tied with Kansas City at the bottom of that division. So those are another couple perhaps gifts on the schedule that we can take advantage of. So I'm actually kind of liking where the Blue Jays are. It might come down to playing Tampa tough, 500 ball, and then it's just going to come down to beating the Yankees, man.
Yeah, exactly. And the last thing that we need is to allow the Orioles to play spoiler, right? I have a feeling that the Orioles are going to play spoiler for someone in the AL East. Like, looking at the rankings as of today, September 9th, the Rays are number 1, 88, 52, 629 winning percentage. Behind them is 9 games behind. You have the Red Sox. Like, that's crazy when you take a look at that. And the Red Sox have 80 wins. Half a game behind them is the Yankees with 78 wins. And then a game and a half behind them are the Jays with 76 wins. Like, can you imagine? There's a possibility that we can end in 4th in this division with 90-plus wins.
Yeah, it's happened before, man. We might have been 3rd before the 2 wild card games, but we've missed the playoffs with 90 wins in this division before in my lifetime, for sure. Perhaps more than once, but definitely at least once. But yeah, so the wild card in baseball now, instead of one team being the wild card, it's the top 2 teams play a head-to-head game. I actually kind of like that, although coming down to a single game after 162 is a brutal beat. But anyway, so the wild card standings right now are Boston leads. The Yankees are a half game behind Boston, and Toronto is a game and a half. So Toronto is a game and a half behind the Yankees. So they're right there for that final spot. But it's like you said, they need to still make up some ground. They need to make up 2 games on the Yankees to catch that spot. So it's very possible that we win 90 games and miss the playoffs, man. It could happen. That would suck.
That would be horrible. That would be just terrible. But at the same time, again, I think that if you're and I hate saying this, but let me try to phrase this as best as humanly possible. If you've followed baseball for a very long time, you will understand that it is no like shitty thing and like the team doesn't suck or it's not Atkins and Shapiro didn't F up this season. Like, you can't say that. But again, like it's the reality is it's like just missing the playoffs is missing the playoffs, right? Baseball still to this day is the hardest sport to get into the playoffs.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, 1,000,000%. And in this division, it's just weird how often it works out that so many teams peak at once. Like 4 of the best teams in the entire AL are in this division playing each other, and it's just crazy. But yeah, if you look at the Jays' run differential, they're closer to Tampa Bay and Houston than they are the rest of the wild card teams and the teams that are looking to miss the playoffs. So I do think that the Jays are playing the type of baseball that they should be playing. They're winning the amount of games they should be winning right now. Obviously, like a 7-game winning streak is a little bit of an outlier, but this is the team this is who we thought they were. The Jays are who we thought they were, Boris.
That's exactly it. And oftentimes the run differential, it's funny that you say that because I was going to bring this up. That stat is such an important stat after the 162 games. Like, we still have a lot of baseball to play. Yeah, a couple weeks, like what, 3.5 weeks left, but that run differential stat, is such an important stat to take a look at. And like you said, we're up there with like league leaders, right? So hopefully the stat of that stat being meaningful is comes true by the end of this season.
Yes, there's basically a full month, almost exactly. The season ends October 3rd, which is pretty close to 4 weeks exactly. So yeah, we're a little bit under a month.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens. But for those people who think, and this is why I love baseball, my 2 teams, I lived in LA, I live in Toronto. My other team, my first team, are the Dodgers. And of course, a division that is even crazier than the AL East is the NL West. Dude, a team can have 100 wins and not make the playoffs in the NL West.
Absolutely insane. Like, yeah, I mean, the San Francisco Giants coming out of basically nowhere. Like, I guess I get that they're an up and down team, but I don't think anyone expected this.
No one expected this.
It's pretty crazy.
People were already giving the Padres the division at the start of the season.
Yeah, 100%. And kind of rightfully so, or the Dodgers, because obviously those 2 teams, on paper, I think those are the 2 best teams in baseball, full stop.
Yeah.
So,
but if we take a look at the standings as they are today, this is just the NL West. The Giants with 90 wins, 643 winning percentage at first, 2 games behind them with 88 wins are the Dodgers. And then you have the Padres 15.5 behind the Giants with 74 wins.
Crazy. Yeah, so the Padres are not the team that we were expecting, but the talent is such there that they can get hot at any time. But yeah, what a race, and the Giants are crazy this year. Kevin Gausman, Cy Young contender.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's unreal, and like let's be honest. I'm a realistic fan. The Dodgers have poured in even more money since the trade deadline into the team, and the Giants are still putting up a fight. They seem to be splitting so many games with one another. Like, if you actually take a look at the division, it's like WWE booking right now. It's 50-50 within the division, and then outside of the division and everyone else, they're cranking every other team.
And Colorado has been relegated to managing San Francisco down to the ring. They're not allowed to be an actual full-time MLB franchise anymore.
They got their manager's license, and that's all they can do.
That's funny. Oh, man, it's a crazy year. But yeah, you brought up a good point. Especially after the trade deadline acquisitions, we should acknowledge that LA, the Dodgers, are by far right now the best team on paper. Safely. After adding Trey Turner and Scherzer in one fell swoop, my goodness, that's an all-star team on paper.
It's disgusting how on paper how good they are. But unfortunately, the Dodgers have the second worst manager in all of baseball, only behind Toronto's own Charlie Montoyo.
Yeah, a couple bad ones. At least Montoyo, I'd love to have a beer with him. Seems like a good guy. Not that Roberts doesn't, but I see way more of Montoyo. I'm kind of cheering for him. I'm kind of pulling for him, despite the fact that I know objectively he's not that good.
But here's the thing, though, and I know we're jumping back and forth with Jays and NL West talk, but, I'm all on the remove Montoyo trade. In fact, I built that train. I, went out, got the pieces of steel, and created that freaking train. But, I feel like his connection with the young stars like a Vladdy, that's what's going to keep him on the team.
That's I think that's interesting. Like, I think we've kind of touched on this before, but I think it will keep him on the team to a point, man. And that point, honestly, might be this season if they miss the playoffs. But if they go like 90, 95 wins and they just miss the playoffs because of circumstance, he'll probably get another year. So you know what I think? I think the barrier is 90, that nice round 90 number, no matter what. If he hits that and they miss the playoffs, I bet he'll stick around just because, like you said, the players love him so much. But if they miss the playoffs and they don't even hit like an objectively huge number, like this is a stepping stone, we're clearly taking the next step, I think he might. Yeah. I think they might need a different voice in the room. Although the problem is the pitching staff. It's always been.
Yeah, 100%. But at the end of the day, right, you got to do the best with what you have. And Montoyo sometimes just doesn't go with his gut. He goes with analytics. And sometimes, more than often, like, why would you remove Ryu when he's at 80-something pitches in the 6th inning and just, like, acing it? Right? Like, yeah, man. Yeah, I think so many managerial decisions come down to like front office manipulation, like numbers and such. Like, I don't think the managers do that much, but I do think like there are certain defensive substitutions that could be made. There are certain like pitching scenarios. I feel like he leaves certain guys in too long or left certain guys in too long. He relied on Tyler Chatwood way too much. There are certain things that he does like that are his decision clearly that I think are poor objectively. Yeah. But he's such a good people person, and the guys seem to love him so much that the main problem is not Montoyo, although you could argue he is a problem. Yeah. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens this season. Personally, if I want the Jays to at least get 90 wins, because back in the beginning of the season, when Jason Agnew and I were on the midweek workout talking about the Jays, I said 90 wins. A lot of people said I was crazy.
Nice. Oh, well, bring it on. I hope we get it. But yeah, we should make the playoffs at 90 wins, I think. I do think the Red Sox and Yankees are cooling off, and one of them will fall below that plateau, buddy. Yeah. Do you want to quickly talk about the Hall of Fame before we get out of baseball?
Exactly. I was exactly going to segue into the Hall of Fame. So yesterday was the official Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I guess A-Rod was the main guy on that list.
I'm thinking, Jeets.
Yeah,
Jeets.
Yeah. Yeah. But
no, the boy for all of us, Larry Walker.
Exactly. SpongeBob, Pin, and all Larry freaking Walker. Congratulations, good old Canadian boy. So happy to see that he got in. I was confident. I remember 2 years ago watching Tim and Sid, because they were covering this like direct. I was confident that he would get in, but you never know with the MLB reporters. You just never know how they're gonna vote.
And it was his last year of eligibility, man. So the groundswell has been coming, but it had to happen this year because, with the MLB rules, like people are only eligible for so long on the ballot, right? So, man, it was a true underdog story for the Canadian boy, Larry Walker. But I love Larry Walker. He is one of the best players on Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball for Nintendo 64. Man rakes, speed, defense. I've always loved Larry Walker. Just a good Canadian lad playing in Colorado with those purple jerseys. How could you not love him? Yeah, and
it's crazy because you forget how good of a player he actually was, right? Like he was so good, especially for his time. I think that oh man, can you imagine if the Expos were able to keep even half the players that they brought up through their system?
Such a tragedy. The real Montreal screw job was the MLB strike in 1994, Boris. It's a real Montreal screw job, buddy.
Yep. But even then, the Expos screwed the Expos.
I love it. Oh, it's so good. It's true. 100,000% true. Pedro gone. Randy gone. If they would have had those level of prospects like today, Montreal would still be a franchise because I feel like someone would be able to manage that a little better. They would have traded them right for the proper amount of prospects back. I think Montreal would have done.
You know what I also feel? I also feel like if they had the right people in charge, the Expos could have kind of been like the Rays of the 90s, right? Like, 100%. Tell me how the Rays are the Rays. How are they in first every season? How are they in contention every single season with literally losing their best players every few years? Like, not that Snell makes a team, but, that's a huge loss. And if you look at their pitching, it's as if he's still there. If not, they're better without him. It's disgusting how good the Rays are. And then you look at their attendance, and it's like, I think a couple weeks ago they got the lowest attendance ever without COVID restrictions. That was like under 5K.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's really sad. Hopefully we live in a world, Boris, where within the next 5 to 10 years, the Tampa Bay Rays move to Montreal and become the Expos, and the Arizona Coyotes in the NHL move to Quebec City and become the Nordiques 2.0. Let's run them both back, buddy.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. All right, day one, week one, NFL season. Dude, here we are, longest season ever. Okay, before we talk about the actual season itself, let's talk about this. How do you feel about the extra game?
Kind of scummy. It kind of hurts. It's just dumb. It's clearly they're building to 18. Yeah, I think because 17 is such a weird number, but the 16 games was like a tradition for so long, and it worked out so well with 32 teams in the NFL, 16 games. It was so nice. I think they're just going to continue to add more and more and more games to this because it's such a huge money-making industry,
That's
Boris.
it.
How could they not, right?
When content rules, when the WWE can make $1 billion over 5 years, right? Like, what do you imagine the NFL can do with their TV contracts, and even more so, their streaming contracts? You split up TV and streaming, you can rake in billions of dollars each.
Yeah, exactly, man. So, yeah, the NFL is going to continue doing this. I understand why, but it is scummy. This is the hardest, most physical sport in the world. People get hurt, dangerously injured, life-altering injuries literally every week. So, man, it's intense. It's very scummy. But
look, you knew that the NFL and their owners, including Jacksonville's owner, don't care about the players when they added the Thursday game. That Thursday game was the scummiest thing that they could have done. Especially for the teams that play Sunday, Thursday. What the hell is that type of thing, right? What's that raw deal? And I think we're going to see more of this. I honestly think we're going to start, as we move into 18 games, we are going to see a Saturday schedule start to happen regularly.
Yeah, the only thing that was hurting that previously was the NCAA college football. And I do think that it's going to be weird with college football, but NCAA sports are taking a massive hit over the next few years, and college football is going to undergo a massive restructuring itself. So we don't even know what college football is going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years. Now, there will always be an NFL development system, and I assume it's going to be the NCAA in some form for the next 2 decades at least, probably, but man, it's really hard to say if college football is just going to dominate Saturdays in perpetuity. I don't think that's the case.
So. I think that's going to change 100%. It's kind of sad though, because traditionally we had Friday night lights, high school football Friday, college Saturday, and then the pros on the Sunday, right? But now, because of TV, because of payments, because of so many reasons why, it's things are changing. And Matt, what would you think is the number one thing that's changing college football? Why are we saying that in the next couple, especially decade or so, it's going to change a lot? What do you think has changed the most?
Well, the big thing was the college athletes now being able to make money off their names and likenesses, right? That's the huge thing. That's going to lead to hopefully video games and all these things coming back, and athletes being able to sell their jerseys and all this stuff. But it could also lead to crippling a lot of the small time schools. It could also lead to a lot of it could become, I don't know, it's really up in the air what could happen now from this point forward. That's a complete and total game changer.
Yep.
So it's just a complete reshuffling of the deck, and it's really hard to say what does happen to the NCAA. I think like college basketball being significantly less popular than college football is in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, 100%.
College football, I think, lasts forever, and college basketball will too, but it might be a lot closer to how college basketball looked in the 1960s and 50s than it looked in like the heyday of like the 80s with like Georgetown and like, you know, even the 70s and like the huge UCLA teams. Boris, you probably know about them.
Yep. Oh,
anyway, so yeah. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens to football anyway. But one point that I do want to make is we can't sit here in too much judgment because we both love football and we will both eat this season up with a spoon. You know what I mean? I'm going to be watching tonight. So it's not like I could be like the NFL's evil, although I do kind of think that they're scummy and I do kind of think that they're evil. I'm going to be watching every Thursday. I'm going to be watching every Sunday. And if they do Saturday games, I'm going to watch them too.
Yep, exactly. So we'll see what happens with the NFL and the NCAA and all that. And we are going to move the other football. And that is because we are in the middle of World Cup qualifying all around the world. Everyone talks about UEFA because that's where the big boys play, it seems. A lot of people talk about CONMEBOL because that's the South American teams, your Argentinas, your Brazil. We're going to talk about a little bit of CONCACAF. That is where Canada and the U.S. play. So essentially, the way that the qualifying works right now is there are 8 teams, and it's a round robin, and the top 3 make it into the World Cup. 4th place goes into another pool. So after the first set of games, which is 3 games, number 1 is Mexico with 7 points, Canada at number 2 with 5 points, and then the USA at number 3 with 5 points. Dude, this is huge for Canada. The fact that we were able to get a road tie against the U.S. in the U.S., hence the road tie, that yes, honestly could give us the key into making the World Cup in 2022.
That's amazing. Definitely glad to hear that. Yeah, coming off a big win last night over El Salvador. Canada's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah.
Didn't even have Davies for that game.
Exactly. Our young wonderkind Davies was injured against the U.S., so they sent them back to Germany to get evaluated and to heal. So hopefully he'll be back for the next round of games, which I believe is in November. But overall, we did not do too bad against Honduras, El Salvador, and the U.S. 5 points out of a possible 9. Let's freaking do it. Let's freaking take it. I'm super. Like, the game that I'm looking forward to the most is against Mexico. It's Mexico is Mexico. I can't wait for that. And obviously the return against the U.S. because it is essentially a one away game, one road game, one home game against these 7 teams. So we'll see what happens. But right now, as it stands, Canada is in second. As it stands, we're making the World Cup in Qatar. First time since 1986 that we could get into the World Cup. And I think if we do get into the World Cup in 2022, it'll really help us to get the automatic entry for 2026 when Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. host the World Cup.
Yeah, it'll be nice to make back-to-back tournaments because, we're sneaking in the back door in 2026, like you said. But, man, I'm very enthused for where they're at. And like you said, like without Alphonso Davies, we're still cranking the teams that we should be cranking. And it's a very good sign. We seem to be a complete team, seem to be on the right track. And we just got to keep firing. It'll be interesting. You said the next round's in November, right?
Yep. Another 3 games set in November. I don't have who we're facing in front of me, but we'll see how that fares. And Canada, our team is so young, and the number one thing that for me is we said it about the Jays, and it's more so important about Canada. We got to beat the teams that we should beat.
Yeah, 100,000%, man. So I was trying to load it up. Do you know the exact rules, like how many teams? Because there's a certain amount of teams that automatically qualify, and then I think it's the 4th place team. I think the top 3 teams in CONCACAF qualify, and the 4th place team has to play the winner of the Oceania League, right?
Yep, that's what set a top. So right now it's a top 3: Mexico, Canada, U.S. Right now, as it stands, Panama, number 4, would face in a playoff series against the Oceania.
Do you know who it would be currently? Sorry, just
no, I don't know who it would be.
T's and dot the I's. No,
not right now. I think that they've just started their qualifying, so I don't know who it would be.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, they all start at different times. And the OFC, I guess, with fewer teams would kind of put that off till the end, right?
Yep, exactly. That's exactly it. So we'll see.
Yeah, so actually, I just loaded this up. It looks like the OFC has not even started yet. They haven't even officially named dates yet.
Yep, exactly. That's what I was kind of gathering. I know UEFA is underway. I know that the Conan Bowl is underway. So that's South America and CONCACAF. Just because there's so many games, right? Like it's 14 games.
Yes, gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry to no. I just wanted to really put the
we
finer.
We got cross T's dot I's on this show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Now let's talk about my fantasy football team for the next 3 hours. Starting with, no, I'm just kidding. But I am going to be talking a lot about Kyler Murray this year, Kyle Pitts. Like I said, Boris, I have a lot of young guns on this fantasy team. It's a 16-team fantasy league, deep benches, 17-man rosters. So I had to take a lot of lottery tickets in this draft. But I'm liking where the teams are at. And before we get out of sports talk, should we talk about the Dolphins a little bit? Dolphins are looking pretty sneaky.
They're looking sneaky. I think they're going to be the surprise of the entire NFL, not just the AFC East. I think they're going to be surprising a lot of people.
Yeah, I do think so. They can challenge Buffalo. Although Buffalo is the best team in this division on paper by far, I think they can challenge Buffalo. So yeah, myself and my roommate Fleetwood Brown, we usually we do written NFL picks. We've done that for the last couple of years over at my website sportsfap.com. We're going to be doing picks of some kind. I'm not sure if we're going to be writing out every NFL game pick this year. We might try to do like a mini podcast or a mini YouTube. But yeah, if you want to hear more NFL talk out of us, we do some kind of we last couple of years we've done like a jokey article, like picking the games. And you know what? We're actually pretty good at it. Fleetwood's pretty dang good. He knows his football big time. Kicks my ass in the picks. But I finished all right as well.
Yep. All right, there we go. Let's move on to some wrestling, the main event, as some people would say. We are going to be talking some ROH. We're going to be talking some All Out. We're going to be talking some WWF Superstars and pick contest. So let's start with some ROH. This is the go-home show before Death Before Dishonor, which is this Sunday. I will be covering that on slamwrestling.net. We will be talking about that on BAM next week. So let's get right into it. So this episode featured the 2 semifinal matches for the Women's Championship Tournament, and it featured a faction versus faction match. You like how I said that? You like that?
Very good. Right. Well done, sir.
All right, so the first semifinal match had Miranda Alizé versus Trish Adora. Chelsea Green did go on to commentary. Alizé just continued, just beat down Adora. It was crazy. This was 100% David versus Goliath. At the end of the match, Miranda Alizé was able to use her speed, get a lot of kicks in. She was able to get her Miranda's right crossface. This was too much for Adora, who ended up submitting after about 30 seconds. So your winner, and moving on to the finals, Miranda Alizé at 12 minutes, 16 seconds. Honestly, there was a commercial break in the middle of this, kind of ruined the flow of the match. Unfortunately, the way that we rate matches here on BAM, it is the full package, the Lex Luger of rating systems. I unfortunately have to only Mendoza line this match because of that commercial break. So it's going to get 2.5 handshakes out of 5.
It makes sense, man. Yeah, sometimes a commercial will really hurt a match, and ROH's commercial breaks tend to be really long. I find like very long and grating, and you're going to see at least one Ric Flair promo, perhaps one LA Knight promo, because they're selling cars, you see.
Yep. You see, LA Knight. I told you he was a car salesman. But it is what it is, unfortunately. St. Clair Broadcasting needs their monies. So match number 2 was the second semifinal match, which saw Roxy, the Prodigy, versus Angelina Love, the veteran. This match was honestly fantastic. And again, Roxy was able to get her armbar, made Love submit. This match was great. This match was fun. This match was essentially Love being the cocky veteran and Roxy being that just like boisterous rookie who wants to prove to everyone why she is the Connor McDavid of RoH. But again, 6 minutes, 44 seconds, Roxy won via submission. They didn't give this match enough time. I'm going to have to Mendoza line this yet again. 2.5 handshakes out of 5.
So good match that didn't get enough time is your overall reaction here. That's fair enough, man. That's kind of disappointing, but you know what? They're saving Roxy's big performance, I imagine, for the pay-per-view, right? So, all
right. So the first match was 12 minutes. The second match was 6 minutes. Remember this. All right. Main event time. Faction versus Faction. The Faction being Shane Taylor Promotions, Shane Taylor, Moses, Khan, O'Shea, Edwards. Against La Facción Ingobernable, Rush, Dragon Lee, Kenny King, and Bestia del Ring. So this match was essentially a shit ton of brawling, shit ton of pandemonium. The main attraction was Rush and Shane Taylor. Those two really were the headline of this match. The end of the match saw Bestia del Ring distract the referee as Kenny King low-blowed Shane Taylor, got the pinfall at 7 minutes and 28 seconds.
7 minutes and 28 seconds, dang.
Yep. So again, like I understand you're teasing a lot of stuff, but you're not even giving us something worthwhile to watch on TV. That was my issue. So again, I'm going to have to Mendoza line this at 2.5 handshakes. But the shining star, the silver lining for me was the fact that we do see the potential for a Rush Shane Taylor program coming out of this. And again, I know that this match was kind of just set up for a lot of other stuff, and this TV was overall the main attraction were the 2 semifinal matches for Death Before Dishonor, which is this Sunday, September 12th, on pay-per-view. Can I run down? Well, we're going to run down the card later, right? So.
Well, I was going to say, do you want to just do the pick contest and do it now because we're talking Ring of Honor? We might as well.
Let's do it.
All right, so I'll quickly talk about the previous pick contest. We did the 2 NWA shows. Boris, you went 7-8 overall after a really strong NWA in Power. Kind of shot the bed on 73 a little bit. But these things happen. I went 9-6 overall. So after both going 5-0 on NXT TakeOver 36, our current records are I am 14-6, and Boris, you are 2 games behind at 12-8. So let's now pick Death Before Dishonor 28, I believe it is.
Yep.
Starting with, on the pre-show, the Honor Rumble. Boris, a 15-man Royal Rumble for an ROH World Title match on the pre-show. We have Danhausen versus Beer City Bruiser versus Dak Draper versus Ray Orris versus Brian Johnson versus Joe Keys versus Brian Milonis versus Sledge versus Silas Young versus PJ Black, and 5 more to be announced. So do you think it's going to be a TBA? And if so, who? And if not, who?
Right. So I am going to be saying this just for the simple fact that ROH needs to capitalize on this guy ASAP, and that is Danhausen.
Danhausen, buddy. I have a Danhausen t-shirt. I'm not wearing it, but you know that I'm wildly for that pick, buddy. Love that Danhausen.
The reality is that it's going to probably be someone like a Flip Gordon or EC3.
Good call. Flip Gordon is a good call. I think EC3 is in the elimination match. Although that'd be kind of fun if a heel came in and won this thing and got a title match anyway. But I think it's going to be Jonah Rock I believe his 30-day no-compete has just come up. He's going to show up somewhere. I think it's a good place to debut him. RoH World title shot off the hop for Jonah Rock. I think he's going to win the former colossal Bronson Reed.
Yep. Yeah, let's go with it. I thought you were going to say something stupid like Leon Ruff.
How dare you? How very dare, good sir. All right, let's move on to the women's tournament final. That's Miranda Alize versus Roxy.
Honestly, Roxy has to take this. She has to. The prodigy, the Connor McDavid, has to take this.
1,000,000% agree. Like, they're telling that story. I guess they could think that the chase is more important, but I think she has to win off the hop. To properly tell the story that she's LeBron James, she has to win off the hop.
To properly tell the story, to give this belt some actual credibility off the get-go, and then, you know that, here's the thing, Chelsea Green is going to probably be the first contender, right? And I'm assuming that if you're going to want the face to win, so Roxy.
1,000,000% agree. I think you hit the nail on the head there, buddy. All right, moving on. We're going singles match. Dalton Castle versus Eli Isom.
Dalton.
Off the hop, just like that, spitting hot fire. I think it's going to be Isom, the younger guy. He needs to win more. I think he's going to beat Dalton Castle.
I think you're right, but Dalton.
All right, buddy. I love me some Dalton Castle. He's awesome. He's great. He's always been one of the best characters on the independent scene. Love that guy. All right, next tag team match. Boris, your boy Matt Taven.
I knew you were going to say that.
Boy, your eyes just rolled into the back of your skull. Your boy Matt Taven and your boy Mike Bennett versus the Briscoe brothers, Jay and Mark.
Here's the thing. Unfortunately, OGK, as they're being called, original Kingdom, Matt Taven and Mike Bennett, I think they're going to try to raise these guys, and who better for them to beat than, the legendary Briscoes, so I'm going to have to go with the original Kingdom.
I'm sadly, I think you're right, but I'm going to do what you just did. I refuse to pick it. I'm picking with my heart, not my head. I'm going Briscoes. You're right, but I'm still picking the Briscoes. All right. Next, we have a 6-man tag team match. It is Violence Unlimited, Homicide, Chris Dickinson, and Tony Deppen. What a fun, eclectic team. Versus another fun, eclectic team of John Walters, LSG, and Lee Moriarty.
Violence Unlimited.
Yeah, I'm going with Violence Unlimited as well. I think they will be the next challengers for the 6-man tag team titles.
Yep.
Next, the 6-man tag team titles, which is Shane Taylor Promotions, Jasper Moses, and Shane Taylor versus La Faction, which is going to be Dragon Lee, Bestia Del Ring, and Kenny King, and that is for the ROH 6-man tag team titles.
Considering what we just talked about, considering the ending of that match, I'm going to have to say Shane Taylor Promotions are winning.
Interesting. It makes a lot of sense. I just think it's time to switch these titles. So I'm going to say Faction. It's good to defer on a couple picks here and there too, buddy. But I think you might be bang on. I just do think it's time to switch these titles. So we're going to go Faction. All right. Next up, the NXT Invitational match unofficially. Jake Atlas versus Taylor Rust.
Oh, I love that. Jake Atlas is winning this.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Taylor Rust is not there to be a hardcore pushed act. I think he's there to put over Jake Atlas in a match that they've probably had in the Performance Center a half dozen times at least.
Yeah, the NXT Invitational.
All right, next up, this match I'm very excited for the pure title. John Gresham champion versus Josh Woods, huge ass kicker.
I don't see them taking the title off of Gresham.
Yeah, I think you're right, although they may, just because Gresham's had it for so long, but he's still delivering. He's so good. He could keep it for another 6 months.
And they keep telling the story of how he beats everyone differently in like some sort of different way, right? Like, I feel like once he repeats something, like a repeat an ending, that's when they're going to take it away for the next time.
Yeah, I can see that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Well, as soon as he runs out of tricks in his bag.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like where your head's at, Boris. I think that's really smart. All right, coming up next, we have For the ROH title, the main event, it's a fatal four-way. Bandito, your champion, versus Brody King, Demonic Flamita, and EC3.
Yeah, I don't see them taking off Bandito. He just won it. This is his first defense. Really, we've seen him like once or twice on TV, so Bandito is taking this.
Yeah, I 1,000,000% agree. It's way too early to take it off this guy. If you want to actually make a main event world title star, they kind of put the belt on Bandito a little early, so they can't take it off him quick already. You know, like he's got to hold this belt for like 6 months a year at least. So yeah. I 1,000,000% agree. It's going to be a spectacular match that Bandito wins. So again, going into this show, I am 14-6. Boris, you're 12-8, and we have 9 matches here. So we've deferred on a couple. We're going to see. It's going to be an interesting show.
All right. Is it time for the main event of the main event? Is it time for Superstars?
Yeah. You know, do you want to talk all out?
Let's talk all out before we go to the main event. Let's talk all out. Possibly the best pay-per-view in the modern era of wrestling. Possibly the best pay-per-view since WrestleMania 17. Possibly the best pay-per-view that we're going to watch in a very long time. And I got to say, kudos to AEW for actually delivering on a pay-per-view like end to end. It was so good. Fun show. You know, and maybe the ending was a little too much with all the surprises, but I feel like it just needed to happen.
Disagree that it was too much, although I guess I can understand why somebody would think that. I do not think that. I think it was the perfect amount of much. You know, it was a lot, but it was supposed to be a huge, like, we've arrived moment. AEW is kind of a little bit like, you could say, like WCW 1996. I almost think it's kind of like WWF 1984. I think they're gearing up to go national, to go worldwide, Boris, and they're getting the best talent they could possibly find around the world. It's just that we don't have Hulk Hogan's and Roddy Piper's and even, like, you know, like Macho Man Randy Savage's. We don't have those level of bombastic stars just chilling on the indies and on the territories. But we do have some stars, and they're signing up. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is exciting times overall for AEW. But yeah, what was your match of the night?
Definitely the cage match. But I thought going over the show, I rewatched the main event too. I thought there were four-star matches on this show. I thought the cage match was like 4.5, like all-time classic stuff.
Funny that you say that. If cage match was my least liked match of the night.
I can see that you'd think that. Yeah, with your taste of wrestling, sometimes I can see that. Yeah. I think it was a little cheesy. It was a little too choreographed for like the blood feud. And I can see why that would completely ruin it for you. But to me, that's just wrestling in 2021.
Yeah, sure. So wrestling in 2021 is just me waiting for the next move.
I think they sold me on the fight of it all. But there were moments where I was like, okay, like the double pile driver while we longingly stare into each other's eyes took me out of the match. The thumbtack shoe, and then Matt Jackson licking the thumbtack shoe, thus completely killing the gimmick. That was as bad as Jake Roberts putting his hand through the blindfold in WrestleMania 7. Yeah. That was what that was. So, like, yeah, man, but it was still, like, in terms of the action, one of the all-time classic 2v2 cage matches at least. It was the best 2v2 cage match I've ever seen. I wouldn't go any further than that. It wasn't a 5-star cage match. There have been the first War Games, the first Hell in the Cell. There are numerous 5-star cage matches. Brett Owen. Numerous 5-star cage matches. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I thought 4.5. I would also say the main event, 4 stars. The women's title match, best Britt Baker match that she's had in her entire career, except for the Thunder Rosa match. And I also thought the MJF Chris Jericho match was absolutely perfect. Exactly what it needed to be. 4.25 I gave that. I think I'm the only person who rated it that high. No. But it worked for me on that day, man. It really did.
You know, it's kind of funny because that was probably one of the best WWF matches I've ever seen. You know exactly what I mean.
That's a great way to put it. But hey, it stood out on that AEW card. They needed a sports entertainment match. That match thoroughly sports entertained me. But yeah, man, the ending to that show was awesome. Adam Cole's promo on Dynamite on Tony Schiavone being a bully dickhead was awesome. I thought I really love where AEW's at right now. Super excited. It looks like the Arthur Ashe show is gonna have Danielson versus Omega as the main event. It's gonna have Miro versus Eddie for the title. It's gonna be a great show.
Yeah,
Punk versus Starks or Hobbs.
Yeah, it's gonna also have freaking Cody coming back.
Your boy,
isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing that I'm enjoying and the world seems to be enjoying AEW so much when a certain someone's away?
Rude, but yes, it is. It is worth noting. But yeah, man, I thought it was a Dynamite show. The only one problem with it is it's like by the time the main event went on, I didn't realize how good that match was until I watched it a second time because I was like exhausted. You know, there was just so much that happened. I just didn't have any attention span left, and perhaps that's my own failing. That's not AEW's fault. But by the time that main event rolled around, watching the show live, it didn't land in my brain anymore how good that match was. I had to watch it back a second time, and it was like, oh, this was inarguably a great wrestling match.
My favorite match was the main event. I think that overall, I think they told the best story. I think that it was the best wrestling. It captivated me the most. It was the most of my style, and I really enjoyed it the most. That match, I would honestly rate 4.5 stars if we really had to go and rate these matches, right? CM Punk, Darby Allin was good, but I don't know. Good, yeah. It was a very good match, but I just feel like there was just so much on this card that unfortunately that match kind of just fell in the middle of a bunch of other great matches.
It was pretty much exactly what I expected, the Punk Darby match. It was pretty much bang on exactly what I expected, which was, so when I watched it, I was like, oh, it was very good. I'm pumped for Punk to be back. But it wasn't like, oh, that was great. Oh, I was just like, oh, it was very good. Good job.
I'm still indifferent about Punk being back, to be honest. Like, it's been how long? Like, I'm over him. I'm done. Like, it's great. I'm not okay. I don't mean that in the negative way. It's just like, it's cool that he's back and I want to watch him. And yeah, it's but it's not like earth shattering for me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's time now to do things. It's time now to be a regular, like if you're going to be a regular wrestler, that workhorse guy on every show, the number one babyface, it's time to be that.
Yeah. Question.
Yes.
Dynamite. Are there too many promos and interview segments on Dynamite?
Yeah, Tony Khan needs help. He needs help, period, full stop. He's going to burn himself out. He's got so much on the go in his real life. And I get wanting to, like, micromanage, and I get, like, trusting yourself and wanting to be the man. But, like, yeah, he needs help. The fact that they cut off Kaza and Ina Ray is, fucking... It's like inexcusable. It's like just it's honestly, man, it's like kind of proof that Tony Khan doesn't watch much New Japan. It's not a mistake that someone would make if they have seen more than 3 New Japan shows. You know what I mean?
You need to go on Facebook, these Japanese wrestling Facebook groups who shit on American wrestling, like to begin with. They're giving AEW a chance because of the Forbidden Door, but holy shit. They just like turned on AEW. Like AEW is the biggest heel right now because of that.
Yeah, man. It's weird because I think like
and also the fact that the match was 10 minutes and Mox pretty much cleaned house.
8 minutes with the commercial and they went home early, it looked like, because Suzuki got busted open hard way around his eye and it looked really fucking nasty. But that was just my interpretation. I don't know if that's 100% true, but that's what it looked like to me, right? But yeah, man. Oh man, they need to do less on every Dynamite. They need to Tony Khan needs to write out the Dynamite that he thinks is good and then cut 1 or 2 things. Full stop. Just kill your babies. Just cut 1 or 2 things and add it to the main event, or just have more time to play with, because the main events of these shows consistently get fucked. And this was the worst example of a fucked over main event for time constraints, because they had to squeeze in a Dan Lambert promo that it was good, but it was no new information. They could have gone home really much earlier in the Dante Martin Hobbs match, because Hobbs got rocked in that. The Ruby Riott Jamie Hayter match, God bless them, that match didn't need to be on Dynamite. They could have just done the Ruby Soho promo. Yeah, man, there was a lot of things there's a lot of easy cuts on this show.
Here's the thing. I don't want to nitpick too much on AEW right now, especially me. But, you know, they're trying to do way too much all at once. You have this amazing roster, and what have we been saying for so many weeks, and it's something that we're not seeing? You can rest people week over week. Not everyone needs to show up. CM Punk doesn't always need a promo. Sting doesn't always need a promo. The Elite don't always need to be scumbag morons and have a promo that drags and drags and drags.
Yeah, I can't really argue that at all, man. I kind of see where your head's at on that one. But I do think there's wisdom in having one top heel and babyface who show up every single week, but you can still rotate that position. Of course.
That's the thing, right? Like they're trying to do too much, and I understand right now that like they're just trying to run with it. But I feel like here's the thing also, I think if they cut more, we would have been complaining, where was the follow-up after an amazing pay-per-view?
Yeah, maybe. It depends, though. Like, they could have cut Dan Lambert and nobody would have said, hey, where's Dan Lambert this week? Like, they would have just assumed he's showing up next week. I think that's stupid
to begin with. Like, you don't need that. You don't need that on the show, right? Like, in my opinion. I think that's, like, yeah, they don't need
Especially because he didn't challenge anybody. He didn't say anything new. He just cut the same promo he always cuts. I agree. Anyway, yeah, so AEW's in a good spot, minus the fact that they're trying to cram way too much in every Dynamite.
Yep. Agreed. All right. Well, that's that. This is time for Superstars.
Right.
Superstar
to the
talk.
main event.
All right.
35 years ago, this Labor Day, September 6th, 1986, from Providence, Rhode Island, Boris, we got the first episode of WWF Superstars of Wrestling.
Do we know when it was recorded?
I'm sure I could find that real quick. Maybe if you want to, if at some point you'll start talking and I'll look that up, or if you want to look that up right now. But yeah. It was definitely pre-recorded, but yeah, it was a heck of an interesting show, man. Definitely, you saw exactly what Superstars was gonna be. You saw a lot of craziness, and some like licensed songs, Boris, or perhaps just stolen songs because it was the '80s. But yeah, it was a different time, man, a different time. So the hosts and commentators on this show are Bruno Sammartino, Jesse Ventura, and Vince McMahon, a motley trio if I've ever seen one, wearing the old school red blazers. Just awesome. In action tonight will be the debut of Coco Beware, I believe the debut of the Rougeau brothers, the return of the Ugandan headhunter Kamala. There will be a Heart Foundation match on the card. Actually, they're going to be opposite the debuting Coco Beware. And the main event of this Superstars, Big John Studd and King Kong Bundy versus Corporal Kirchner and S.D. Jones. By God.
Right. That's funny.
All right. So we also see that there's going to be an episode of The Flower Shop featuring adorable Adrian Adonis, and the Fedorettes make their debut, and the Fedorettes were basically ring girls for WWF. They would, take the wrestlers' gear, like their, robes and such, title belts, and basically generic ring girls. So yeah, Boris, how are you feeling about the Vince McMahon, Bruno, Jesse Ventura commentary trio, specifically Bruno on commentary?
He was so not even monotone, but it just felt like he was just like just trying to present a sport, not really giving it much in terms of the entertainment part. It just kind of felt like he was more interested in talking about wrestling than anything else, and he's just pure business.
It was interesting because you had Vince McMahon telling the WWF stories. You had Jesse Ventura being his classic entertaining heel self. And you have Bruno Sammartino doing like 1970s pro wrestling commentary.
Yep, exactly.
It's quite an interesting trio. I kind of think it works. Maybe it's just compared to some of the shitbags we see on commentary today. But I actually like this commentary trio.
It wasn't the worst. I'll say that. It's not Heenan Monsoon, right? It's not Heenan Monsoon and Ventura, but like this worked for its time, in my opinion. Hell, fuck, this works for now, to be honest. But the only person that kind of just stood out in kind of like a iffy way was San Martino. But that's just like, what else? Like, are you shocked?
Yeah, no, not at all. But yeah, so superstars hit their formula right away. A bunch of squash matches, maybe one semi-competitive main event, and a ton of crazy, wacky promos. We're going to get into all of it. So the show starts, jobbers, jabronis, Terry Gibbs, and Roger Kirby versus the babyface tag team of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and CV Affy. CV Affy, one of two guys who were in featured roles on the show that I have zero memory of.
Same. As soon as I saw him, like, who the hell is this person? Also, this is a great trivia question. Got to remember this one. What the first Superstars match ever was.
Exactly. That's a very interesting one. Terry Gibbs and Roger Kirby versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and CV Affy. So the faces, they dominate this thing. The heels get a little bit of offense in. You can see that Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, in the 30 seconds he's in this match, is far and away the best, most talented wrestler in this match, and one of the most talented in the company. The babyfaces win in 3 minutes. It's a superstars match, buddy. I don't know if I'm going to sit here and rate everyone. Honestly, they're all like 1 to 2 stars. Yeah. It's a superstars match.
Let's just blow through this. Not blow through it, but
Yeah, commentary was the highlight to me, and it's very interesting to see CV Affy in a pushed position getting the lead match in WWF Superstars.
Yeah, honestly, like, for the life of me, I do not remember this person at all.
Yeah, I think because I was born in '87. I watched like everything on VHS from like WrestleMania 1 on, everything I could, But yeah, he wasn't really pushed in the mid to late '80s that hard. I haven't seen much CV Affy in my life either, my friend. There's another guy on the show who's even more obscure in my opinion. I barely knew he existed. But so next we go, and this was wild and crazy. We talked to Gene Okerlund, who is cuts to a video package of the returning superstar Billy Graham. We see superstar Billy Graham doing curls in the gym, set to Bad to the Bone, I believe, by George Thorogood. Just hilarious. Just superstar Billy Graham just pumping that iron. And then he cuts a promo on Big John Studd while tarantulas walk all over his body and face. And he's just talking about the scorpions and the tarantulas, brother. And this was the corniest, craziest thing I've ever seen. And it closes with 5 seconds of Jungle Boy's theme, Tarzan Boy. That's how they throw it to commercial. This segment blew my mind. What did you think about this, buddy?
Dude, I'm watching this and I'm like, man, this is an expensive segment nowadays, just in terms of money on the music.
2 licensed tracks that I'm sure WWF just stole in the 80s. But yeah, wild, crazy.
But it was crazy. It just like, I just did it. It seemed like, a David Lynch wrote this. Like, it just like was so weird.
The snakes and the scorpions. Yeah, it was just absolutely insane. If you do nothing else, load this show up on YouTube. It's there with the old songs and some old commercials. And you got to check out this little 2-minute promo. It's just batshit. It's just batshit. Next up, we have the Hart Foundation, Brett and the Anvil, with Jimmy, Mouth from the South Heart, versus Coco Beware and Paul Roma. What a team. What a tandem. This is Coco Beware's WWF debut. And so Jesse Ventura gets a pretty racist crack in there. He gets would become his typical buckwheat joke to Coco Beware. That also debuted on this show, unfortunately. It was a little strange to have Coco debut as the losing member of a tag team, but they really had Paul Roma do the selling and the bumping. Coco hit a couple drop kicks and then came in at the end and hit a couple more drop kicks. So they put Coco over in defeat. It was just a strange way to debut him.
Yeah, agreed. But this match actually wasn't too bad. Man, like it's crazy to watch how like just sound Brett was throughout his career.
Oh my God! Already, much like Steamboat in the previous match, you can see that Bret Hart was a cut above the other wrestlers in this match. Even Coco, who was pretty good.
Dude, that's exactly it. It's like Bret just seemed like he was slowing himself down to help the other guys get through the match. Like, it was crazy. But Coco Beware, like I I don't want to say that he was ever a bad wrestler, or I ever thought he was a bad wrestler, but he had like, as short as this match was, pretty impressive showing for his debut.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was 1 minute and 51 seconds, and they did enough in this that not only did they further the Danny Davis is a crooked referee storyline, they also got over Coco Beware and the Hart Foundation. Yep. So it was a pretty strong 2 minutes minus Jesse Ventura's open racism on commentary.
Yeah, well, that's that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the 80s. And, you know, but yeah, so that was a pretty solid 2 minute match. I believe it was, heart attack on Paul Roma, who got his ass kicked for the majority of this 2 minutes. So next we have Ken Resnick, random backstage goofball. They've had a ton in WWF history. He runs down the upcoming Boston Garden Show, and we see my boy, one of the all-time GOATs, my opinion, the GOAT professional wrestler, Randy Macho Man Savage, comes out, cuts an awesome promo about how he won the gold in Boston 6 months ago, and how he's going to kick the piss out of the half-wit animal, George the Animal Steel.
Yep, this was great. He's such a good promo. It's insane. Like, man, if these, it was so good.
You can literally just Google YouTube just throw Randy Savage promo into YouTube, and you'll get entertained for hours. Like, you can click on anyone and there'll be a little nugget, there'll be something in there that you'll laugh at, that you'll love. Macho Man is one of the greats, not only in the ring but outside.
Yeah, even
this was a trip.
Yeah, even when his promos are batshit crazy, he does something to like make everything like memorable, for lack of a better term, like something that you'll remember.
Yes, yeah, exactly right. Like, he tries really hard to have some kind of something that'll stick in your head, some kind of grabber in every single promo.
Some earworm.
Yes, exactly. This was a trip, and this kind of made me want to stick with Superstars and watch it throughout until the turn happens, although I'm not going to do that. But you know what we got here, Boris, is a babyface Honky Tonk Man promo, the rarest of the rare. Honky Tonk Man is a fiery white meat good guy who calls out Paul Orndorff in the good name of his friend Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And
isn't that crazy?
Crazy. The way this goes is Hulk Hogan actually endorses Honky Tonk Man a couple of times on TV, and they're really trying to push him as a babyface. And I wonder if it was real, or if the intention all along was that the crowd turned on this guy immediately. Yeah. They were like, "Who is this fucking Elvis wannabe jack-off?" So they did a fan vote, where fans wrote in, and it was, "Do you approve of the Honky Tonk Man?" It was like a whole angle that played out over the course of a couple months on WWE TV. And then they read the votes, and nobody voted pro Honky Tonk Man. It was something like 600,000 votes, and 590,000 were anti-Honky. And then he turned heel immediately and basically won the IC title like a month later.
Poor Poochie.
Oh, death.
Going back to his home planet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Honky Tonk Man died on his way back to his home planet.
No, but like, you know, so and this is off the heels of the big event, you know, so this is like Paul Orndorff in probably his like most prominent role. So yeah, like, yeah, this was interesting times. I honestly forgot that Honky Tonk Man came in as a face. Like, I kind of came in. I knew that in passing, but I forgot, like, you know, day to day.
It's such an interesting angle to watch now, because regardless of whether it was the plan or not, it's so interesting, because if it was their plan to start him as such an annoying babyface that the crowd turns on him and then make him a really strong heel, that's brilliant. And if they were dumb enough to think that this would actually make him a good babyface, but then they had the foresight to actually come up with this great idea to turn him heel, that's still brilliant too. So regardless of how they got there, this is a great angle. This was very entertaining, interesting pro wrestling. And it's just crazy to see now, because WWF would never, ever, especially in 2 months, go, "Hey, I think we were wrong, we should pivot." Or they would never come up with this story so brilliant in the first place?
Well, here's the thing. I was literally going to bring this up and say, like, it's funny 35 years ago what WWF does versus 35 years, well, now, what they do in terms of listening to the crowd, whether they were listening to them or not, right? Like the fact that they had a plan for this, or the fact that they actually listened to the crowd. Just goes to show you how different times are in terms of, you know, them putting on what they think we want, what they think we like, versus them putting on what we actually want to see.
1,000,000%, man. It's really truly sad what wrestling has become versus when they had to, for their own survival, listen to the fans and cater to the paying customer, versus now where they just are a company that prints money and they can do whatever they want.
You said it right there. I think the times that WWF was at its best was when they were on the heels, when they were like, you know, will they survive, yes or no? Let's look at like two examples. When WWF like went full national, and then again when WCW was around. Like those were the two times when WWF was like on the brink, right? So they had to do everything they did. Now they're printing money. Now they fart money. Like they don't need to do anything to get money. So what's their motivation in listening to the fans and giving us what we want?
Exactly, and they don't even care to try to do.
They don't even pretend to.
They don't listen. No, they really. Anyway, so let's continue on to the second wrestler who I have almost no memory of. Hillbilly Jim's cousin Luke. So Hillbilly Jim and cousin Luke, not to be confused with the Bushwhackers Luke. Different Luke. Hillbilly Jim and cousin Luke versus two jobbers, Ron Shaw and Pete. Hillbilly Jim wins with a bear hug in 1:46. I guess this was Hillbilly Jim's return after a long absence. Cousin Luke did not last very long. He was along with Uncle Elmer in the Hillbilly Jim family. Yeah, no memories of cousin Luke. I think it's the first time I've ever seen him wrestle.
I do remember cousin Luke. I don't know how, but I do remember him.
Interesting, yeah. Do you have much memory of the Hillbilly Jim? I've seen Uncle Elmer like once on WrestleMania 6 or so, or sorry, WrestleMania 2 from 86.
I do remember, like I do have some memory, like it's just, but not like, yeah, it's nothing that I can like if you didn't bring it up, I wouldn't have remembered.
Right, yeah, exactly. Fair enough. All right, so Goofball Resnick's supposed to interview the British Bulldogs, but who should interrupt but Fred Blassie and the Doctor of Style Slick, who is pretty new to the WWF in September 1986. Blassie refers to the machines as something racist. They're masked, but it was still racist. They're playing Japanese characters, and yeah, this was a bad promo.
Yep.
Moving on. Speaking of racist characters in WWF, the Ugandan headhunter Kamala with King Curtis Ayakea and Kimchi. I will say that for 1980s, Kamala was over, man. People were like scared of this guy, and he beat the shit out of jobbers. He would go on to he won with a big splash. He would go on to do this big splash off the top rope, and they would routinely do stretcher jobs for the jobbers that he would kill with this top rope splash. Similar to Psycho Sid in the late 80s in WWE, or sorry, in the late 80s in WCW and early 90s in WWF as well. He would do stretcher jobs for these jobbers all the time. I think that's a definite way to get somebody over. 100%. Like immediate. One in WWF needs to do that soon.
Yep.
Stretcher jobs. Maybe they should do that for Parker Bordeaux when he comes in.
Yeah, and you know he's coming in this week. You know he's coming in next week. Anyways, we'll talk about that another day.
Yes. So yeah, Kamala, your mileage is going to vary on him as a wrestler and a character, but they put him over really, really strongly. He was building up for a run with Hulk Hogan, and they actually had a couple halfway decent brawls, considering it's Hulk Hogan versus Kamala in 1986 and 7. Next up, a homophobic segment, The Flower Shop with Roddy Piper. Makes a couple pretty homophobic comments to Adrian Adonis, makes a couple fat jokes at him, and then Boris, we have for the first time probably on WWF TV, in 1986, we have talk about ratings. We have television ratings talk in a promo. Roddy Piper brings a sheet of paper and reads the ratings for the previous WWF shows and says that the Flower Shop is the least rated segment on WWF TV routinely, and Piper's Pit will be taking over next week.
That's amazing. I love that. Why are wrestlers, wrestling fans, wrestling angles so obsessed with ratings?
Cyclical, buddy. What is old is new again. I about shit my pants when they started talking about ratings in 1986. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, but just goes to show you how freaking brilliant Piper was.
Oh man, Piper was incredible. When he was lucid and like making sense and like concise too, he was amazing. But yeah, this was
but yes, I know what you mean.
This was a weird segment, but Adrian Adonis was kind of great in it, especially his meltdown at the end. Adrian Adonis was a special talent, man. People don't realize how special that guy was. He was an incredible pro wrestler.
You know what my first wrestling LJN toy ever was?
Was Adorable Adrian?
Yep.
Nice. I had a bunch of those figures too. That's hilarious. All right, next, I think I might be wrong about this, but I think this was the first appearance of the Rougeau brothers versus Bob Bradley and Mike Fever. What a great jobber name Mike Fever is. But yeah, so this was pretty standard. The French commentary team gets on the mic. They actually cut to the French commentary team. I think they said something like, I forget exactly what they said. I got like a coup de pied les Rougeau, and then they said like a échange rapide, which was like a quick exchange. They just got a couple things in there. I didn't catch too much of it. My French is very rusty, but they cut back to Jesse Ventura. Could you translate that for us, Jesse? And he just right off the hop, Jesse was like, well, I believe Edward said that he wasn't very impressed with these French Canadians. It's just really funny. Jesse's delivery was classic on it. But yeah, so the Rougeau brothers win with their assisted flipping holdy hand senton thing. I don't know what you would call it, but Raymond gets on the top rope. Jacques flips him over and they hit a senton.
The assisted cannonball.
Yes, the assisted Rougeau cannonball for the win at 156. This is pretty good squash. The Rougeaus look pretty good here. They were also hardcore white meat baby faces on this show.
Yeah. I love the Rougeaus. I really always liked the Rougeaus.
Same. Baby face or heel.
Whatever form Pierre was, I just loved it.
Babyface, heel, Raymond, Pierre, PCO. He wasn't a Rougeau brother, but he's an honorary Rougeau brother.
Yep.
And yeah, I million percent agree. Quebecer, no Quebecer. I love every iteration of Rougeau. Amazing French Canadian, whatever it is.
Yep. Don't ask Kevin Steen what he thinks of them.
Yeah, the only man in Canada who is anti-Jacques Rougeau. Actually, I'm sure we can find a few more in Quebec.
Davy Boy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure.
Bret
Hart, after all them cattle prods.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're showing a replay of last week's Flower Shop segment with Bobby Heenan and Captain Lou and the Machines, leading to King Kong Bundy and Big John Studd versus Corporal Kirshner and SD Jones Boris, the main event of the first Superstars episode.
Another trivia question.
It might surprise you to note that King Kong Bundy pins SD Jones with an avalanche in 2 minutes and 50 seconds. It was a terrible match. It was objectively a terrible match, but it was putting over the big men in order to put over the future match with the big machines. Super Machine and Big Machine, I believe, will be the tag team facing. They also had Giant Machine in there. They had Hulk Machine. The machines were a fun gimmick. It was basically anytime the heels were, being rude to this tag team, they would recruit a new big baby face and they would put the machine mask on them, and it was very clear who it was. But yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting gimmick. I think they could bring back the machines in some form, a gimmick like this, and would probably work in WWE to some degree.
Oh yeah, right. Like this is the thing. It's cheesy enough that it just works.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. It's simple, wacky pro wrestling fun. So yeah, they cut to a Machines promo at the end of the show. Sounded like Big Machine, I think it was Axe from Demolition, I believe. I'm not sure who Super Machine was off the top of my head, but by voice, it seemed like the machine on the right, which I believe was Big Machine, sounded a lot like Axe from Demolition.
Yep. I skipped this, to be honest.
That's totally fine. Anyway, a wacky, crazy show. The first episode of WWF Superstars. Definitely, if you're going to watch it out, seek out that Superstar Billy Graham promo. Seek out Babyface Honky Tonk Man. And also Babyface Rougeau Brothers.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy where where, you know, you kind of forget because, like, in your mind, your nostalgia, your memory always kicks in and remembers, like, you know, whether these guys were heels or faces at their height, as opposed to how they started, how they ended, and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, you completely forget, like, wow, like, fiery white meat babyface honky tonk man. What a trip. What a trip.
Yep, exactly. So that's Superstars, episode 1.
Yeah, it was fun. Probably not going to be doing many more Superstars reviews, but it was good to look back 35 years ago this week to the first episode of WWF Superstars.
Trust me.
So yeah, next week on the show. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think we're going to want to review Superstars once we start reviewing 20 years of TNA.
Oh my God. Oof. Yeah, that's coming May 2022. Little teaser for y'all. But yeah, so next week we're going to do Ring of Honor TV. We're going to do Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor 28, I believe it is. And I don't know, we might have some kind of retro show for you as well, but we're going to have at least those two things.
Yep, exactly. And also because if you're coming from the SNME radio feed, you are a patron, so make sure that you listen to the Midweek Markout with Jason and Mark. You got the last episode of the Uncle H era of NXT Talk. You have the you have the Old Fucks All Elite Weekly coming out tomorrow. You have the Smack Daddies and the Old Fucks review of Rampage on Saturday. You have the main show on Sunday. Every day you have a wrestling show. If you're coming from the BAM feed, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate everyone's ears for this hour and a half as we ramble about sports and or entertainment. He's Matt. I'm Boris. Goodbye.
Yeah.